There are many stories about the American Revolution that are really not very well known. And one of them is what we call the Newburgh Conspiracy that occurred toward the end of the Revolutionary War. And what I'd like to do is set that story up for you in this particular segment. The year is 1781. The cause is looking up. There were some really good developments in the year 1781 from the American perspective. One of those developments had to do with finally getting some plan of a national government ratified, and that occurred on the 1st of March in 1781, when after 5 years of wrangling as to what that government would look like, and that government finally came into being under the Articles of Confederation. A couple of characteristics of the Articles. First of all, the power was not in the hands of the national government. Rather, it resided in the hands of the states. And the second characteristic was that there was no taxation authority, only the privilege of Congress to hopefully requisition money from the states to support the cause. And of course, the cause was winning the Revolutionary War. So that government comes into being, and it really relates then directly to the Continental Army, because one of the characteristics of this army was that it was a creditor to the United States. The officers were owed money. They've been promised half-pay pensions at war's end to keep them in the service. That was back in 1780. The soldiers hadn't been paid or paid sporadically over the years, and that army is interested in making sure that it gets some sort of a financial settlement before the army is disbanded. And if that army is disbanded and the soldiers go away, go home if they have homes, drift off, whatever it might be, there's very little chance that they're actually going to see any pay. So the army is increasingly nervous in 1781, especially after the great American victory, another major development in October 1781, when the combined forces of General George Washington, with absolutely inestimable help from the French in terms of naval forces and land forces, will capture the army of Lord General Cornwallis in October 1781 at Yorktown. So indeed, this army has finally been triumphant, has captured a whole British army. This victory at Yorktown will lead the British back home, their leaders, to begin to talk about finding some way to get out of this war, to have some sort of a peace settlement. And so the army, now having achieved what is a really great victory, will go back north and will settle into the Hudson Highlands area above New York City. And that army is going to sort of sit there and wait, because the main British forces are in New York City, wait for those sources to retire from the field, and wait for that peace settlement which is about to come. But what you need to know about that army is that the army is not a happy establishment. The army feels that it has not been treated well by the American civilians. There's a lot of concern about all the years of lousy food and rotten clothing, all sorts of different problems about lodging, about civilian support in general. And so the Army feels a certain distance from the civilian population, and those soldiers and their officers are asking, what was this really all about? And that's a very, very key question that we're going to investigate, because that leads us directly into the Newburgh Conspiracy, which was really potentially an attempted coup against the young United States government, if not an attempt to take that government over completely and result in some form of a military dictatorship.